All right, it's Tuesday, April 1st. This is end of the day SPY recap, first day of the new month and the new quarter. Today you have a two-up green day. It essentially held above the midpoint of the prior day. And after that green day yesterday, expected those highs to be tested, which it did. And then it kind of closed slightly green. So we're getting more and more information about the, as price is moving throughout the week and what kind of reference points are. But for today, it was clearly biased to the upside, just given the fact you're above the midpoint of the prior day and expecting price to, test the highs of yesterday after a big green bar. So if you look at price action here, between the blue lines was the pre-market range. A little tricky to start. I mean, you had the little red opening here that didn't quite take out the pre-market lows liquidity and then started up on bar two. And didn't really close green. It kind of failed. Then we came down, eventually did take out the pre-market lows, and then had kind of a red to green move coming back through the midpoint of the first bar, which was kind of a signal then to kind of test, the high, the high of the day, the pre-market highs and yesterday's highs, and it did that in kind of one big move up there before just settling in for the rest of the day and not giving any secondary signals. So all the signals this morning were kind of buy opportunities in the morning, and then the retracement never really gave you anything that looked like it was turning green to head back to test those highs of the day, and there was nothing really to do in that area. I'm kind of looking at this second bar kind of if you were going to be aggressive and buy the two up right as it was forming, you really had to take a small loss here on the beginning of bar three, and then kind of wait for a re-entry here on this red to green move that was the actual move to the highs. What I wanted to do is just highlight kind of what this looks like on the 1 minute chart, this breakout, and then when you break above a previous bar, do you wait for it to close all the way? It's 15 minutes, or do you kind of try to jump in a little early? A lot of times, it's a feeling you have relative to what's developing, but if you jumped in early, then you have to just take that small loss below the midpoint of the first bar and wait for another entry should it develop. But if I look at the 1 minute chart, I kind of drew it up here. This is kind of how things opened. The very first 15 minutes was here, and then it went up, and there was kind of a big breakout here. So let's say you bought it here, or didn't buy it here. If you did buy it here, you're watching it, and it comes up, and it pauses, and you really want to see this pause kind of continue higher towards the end of that 15 minutes, and then it obviously came down, try to head up, maybe you're still holding, and then right around here, I think you had to take a loss. But if you didn't want to buy it right out of the gate, on that first breakout, you can kind of watch it, pause, and then look to buy it maybe as it heads up to confirm this 15-minute bar would be really following through above the first bar high. Versus this bar here, which was the actual signal to buy. If you look at the 1 minute chart here, it kind of came up and took out that high right here, kind of held, and then it continued higher. So this one, if you bought it, right on that first breakout, you could have held through here, and then you would have had the confirmation. If you didn't buy it right away and you still wanted to buy it early in the 15-minute bar, you're buying it maybe on that first break of the high, watching it, and then as it heads up, buy it here. If you wait all the way till the end of the bar, you're still in good shape. As it turns out, you could have bought it where is it? Right here in the fifth. By the time it's heading up here towards the end of you kind of know that at this point you're likely taking out the high of the day and heading towards yesterday's high. So anywhere in this top of this green bar, you could have bought it as well, and you would have been fine going forward. So just thought I'd point that out. It's there's no real exact rule when to exactly buy it, but in this case, that second bar really kind of failed a little bit. And just in case there was going to be a big drop, you had to kind of take your small loss if you aggressively bought it here on this bar, even though it didn't really close green, and wait for a re-entry. So that's kind of the way I'm looking at it. And now going forward, we have the weekly chart that is still reversing green, but we have to get above the midpoint of this red bar in order to really feel comfortable we're heading up here for the rest of the week. And what's interesting is this bar, while it followed through a little bit, it didn't really follow through strongly, and we're right in this gap in here. So this could be an area where things reverse. So we're going to see now tomorrow, the way I see it, And everyone's looking at April 2nd as some kind of major day in the market. We'll find out. But, if it comes up a little bit, you expect it to broaden above that high right there. And you don't want to see, and if it does, you don't want to see it. At that point, that should be the trigger to head all the way up here. If it just broadens out to this red bar and then somehow fails, be ready for a move lower. Also, of course, we could start lower and get a 2 down type of day. And that would maybe start, the month off, red below the green line, and maybe kind of turn the weekly chart red if we can kind of reach our target down here. So I'm willing to go either way, but we're going to have to see now, how any continuation of this up move starts reaching these targets or not up here. And if it can't do it and then has any kind of failure, either intraday or, right out of the gates, then be ready to go to the sell side and kind of realize that maybe you're just pausing at this key pivot here, trying to rally, but eventually moving a lot lower. So that's still a possibility, but, as long as we stay above the open now of the month here, this green line, and continue higher, then we could be broadening all the way back up here and having a whole strong month. If I look at the monthly chart, since we're starting the new month as a final thing here, let me click that. Technically, this is, even though we had the red month last month, as long as we stay above the open, this can go green all month long and keep our bias to the upside. So keep that in mind. This can just be the classic 1 month pause after a big uptrend, and that's all. And we might be in a trading range here for a while, but eventually it continues higher along with the big picture trend to the upside. As I've discussed before, when I see a 1 month pullback, that's reasonable to me, as long as the weekly chart then reverses up to start the resumption of the uptrend. When I see 2 pullbacks in a given, on the monthly chart, I want to see a green month before I'm comfortable really getting back. So at this point, it's just a 1 month pullback. It was pretty sharp, but we're greening now, and we'll keep that open of the month as a reference point going forward. But for today, definitely bias to the upside, and we had a little bit of a continuation from the reversal that happened on Monday.